And welcome everyone to another OSR tabletop with myself, GM Bloodworth, and happy holiday weekend for many of you. If you're in the United States, who just finished celebrating Thanksgiving, Thanksgiving. So happy Thanksgiving to all of you, and it was great to spend time with both family and friends over this really extended weekend. I was off since Wednesday, so 5 day holiday weekend, and hope all of you enjoyed as well. So let's see. And hey, Chubby, how's it going? I will be putting out the invite in. So if anyone wants to come in, what a coincidence. This is the topic right after I dropped a video today about how to start Gods of the Forbidden North campaign. So I'll definitely check that out and watch that. And yeah, this is a topic that I think it's not quite as cyclical as other topics within the hobby sphere. But it is one that I've seen before, and it's one that I've thought about and put some thought into it as well. So, Chubby, like I said, you are welcome to join in, and I will put up that invite in 1 second. So here we go. And uh, if those of you are just tuning in now and you're not sure what the topic is, so the topic is how to start a new campaign. Like, where do you have the characters starting in a new campaign? I've heard a lot of individuals come out and say, that you start off in a tavern is just a dead horse beaten over and over again, and it is not very creative. It's too cliche. At the same time, it is tried and true. I'm saying it's like, something doesn't become, um, something doesn't become a stereotypical way of doing something without it having some credibility. And but I think that it is important for game masters to try to put a twist on that, or to do something dramatically different from that. And I've seen a lot of different approaches during my long history in the hobby. But for newer players, they might have only experienced you begin at a tavern kind of cliche. That's what I meant. It's a cliche, or it's a trope. And again, tropes don't happen in the absence of some validity. At least there is a reason why they become tropes. So anyway, okay. So again, if you do get a chance, you're welcome to pop in. I got to get this done first, maybe in a bit. All right, great. Howdy, how's it going there? Chthonic music, musings, sorry. And let's see. In a tavern called the Dead Horse. Yeah, so yeah, you can start off in a tavern called the Dead Horse. And as always, thanks a lot, my ear trumpet. And you just gave a free membership to TweetPX, who is a fellow, or soon to be fellow YouTuber. So if you caught me last weekend, last Sunday, I had a guest come on, kind of unexpectedly for her too. But Nikki was actually on, and that's what spurred our discussion on last week's live stream, is what brought about this particular live stream topic, because it did come up. But it was really great to meet her and to have her come on the channel and talk about her future channel, what she's looking to do. And yeah, it'll be great. It was a great collaboration and great discussion last week, so I really enjoyed it. And a lot of people came into the comments and really did that as well. And I encourage you to go check out her channel and see, and just be on the lookout for when she does start dropping content on the channel. I'll expect that it would be, worth your while to watch. Anyway, Ducato, as always, good to see you. And I have some questions for you, Ducato, for Dragon Slayer, since I know you've run it. So yeah, I'm going to have some questions for you with Dragon Slayer, because I was just reading through and I'm getting ready to start my first campaign using Dragon Slayer, and I was coming across, like, I just realized that magic items don't give experience points, and they don't have gold value either. So that's quite an interesting thing. So I'm thinking either leveling up is super, super slow, or there's other means of granting XP for their time and their adventuring. So I'm thinking that I saw another write-up where they were kind of breaking down their kind of house rules for running a barrel maze, that you get exploration for experience points for each segment of the dungeon that they go through. So each room, provided that they spend a certain amount of time in each room and do a variety of different, tasks in it, and not just passing through and, hey, there's 10 experience points. They're actually going in, spending about a turn, really investigating the place, checking for traps, doing whatever, utilizing skills within that space, and then they will learn a little bit about where they're at and whatnot. So, and getting back to my topic, you can start a campaign off where they're already in a dungeon. So that's certainly a possibility. I mean, yeah, it's another trope, like where you wake up and you're in you're locked up in a dungeon. You're a prisoner, and you're basically half naked and in a cage kind of thing, and you're just waking up, and that's a trope that I've seen in Conan stories as well. I mean, there's been a number of times Conan has woken up in a cage, in a dungeon. So, but anyway, that's that's another possibility of starting off a campaign. Now, I've started off campaigns in a tavern before, obviously, but I've always tried to put a little twist on it, and I haven't always had the player characters know each other ahead of time, and they're encountering each other for the first time in that kind of a setting. I've had them start off as caravan guards, and so they're kind of thrown right into it, and within minutes of starting, they're already being attacked by bandits or whatever, and they're thrown right into combat right from the start. I've had them start off on a battlefield, with lowered hit points, like at half the hit points, and with an enemy bearing down on them, and roll for initiative. And let's see if they actually get through that very first battle. I've mixed it up a little bit, but yeah, the trope of starting off in a tavern, I think, comes from the fact that players oftentimes don't know enough about the world on the first session of a campaign to truly know how to begin their characters. And I think that's something that we as game masters have to deal with, as far as really setting up the setting up the setting for them ahead of time before that first gaming session, so that maybe the players can talk amongst themselves and come to the table with a clear idea of how they're going to start off, whether it be through introductions or they're arriving in smaller groups and then come together, as a whole at a different point. But anyway, I'm going to start taking a look at some of your comments and see. So, new campaign idea: characters are trapped at a tavern and can never escape, but they keep discovering new parts of the tavern they didn't know existed. That's interesting too. Yeah, like almost like the tavern is like has extra dimensional spaces that they weren't aware of. How's it going, Mike? Good to see you. I am not sure if that is written into Barrow Maze, but it makes sense to give XP for exploration. Yeah, it was in someone else's write-up, of like a player's guide to Barrow Maze, and that's where the person had it, where it's like the first room you truly investigate is going to give you 10, every single player character 10 experience points, and then it jumps up to like 30 for the second room. And this isn't just passing through. This is actually going in and spending at least a turn in that space. I've seen other things about, and that is actually in Dragon Slayer, about time and time passage in a dungeon, and how the random encounters should be taking place at least once every 50 minutes in game time. So now I would make it a little variable so that the players aren't being like, hey, we've inspected 5 rooms and now an encounter is going to happen. I would say within that hour's time, and just roll a d6 to determine, is it going to be the first 10 minutes or the last 10 minutes of the hour that something is going to happen. And that might also happen simultaneously with a static event, like going into a particular room where there are creatures in there for whatever purpose that they're supposed to be in there. And so you can definitely combine up a random encounter with a located encounter simultaneously, because that can certainly happen in a living environment, which is what I think you're trying to create when they are in a dungeon. I'm kind of mixing two different streams, but again, starting off player characters, you can start them off in a dungeon, and have them at a dungeon entrance all of a sudden, and then get into almost like after they go through the adventure, then we go back and we learn about what brought them to that point, and kind of like doing like almost like a flashback to what got them there to begin with. So that might be an interesting thing to attempt to pull off as well. So let's see. I like to start campaign where they wake up on a ship, having been impressed into the Navy. Then they have an opportunity to escape into a strange land where the ship stops to take on supplies. Yeah, that's pretty cool too. And there's plenty of that's a very common again, Conan. So the Age of Conan, the MMO Age of Conan, has you washing up on the shore of of a beach, basically naked and naked and afraid, naked and thrown right into survival mode at that point too, which is another again, it's a trope, but it's one that I've seen in a number of places, and I'd call it tried and true. It's another way to throw them right into it. That'd be a great idea for getting players into or adventurers into a new area. Yes. a new world location where nobody knows what's out there. They just stop for fresh water and fruit. Yeah, yeah, that's definitely a great way to start off on something where um, the player characters don't necessarily know each other, but they're in a similar circumstance, and you just kind of throw them right into it. So and so that's something that I'm actually using, not quite the ship thing, but my next campaign is going to start off where they're guards. They're leaving one small little town where they've squandered off whatever silver they had in their pockets at the time. They basically have their basic gear enough to get to the next town. They've been hired for a pittance of a salary, and to go from one town to the next as caravan guards, and then of course the caravan will get attacked. And like I said, within the first 5 minutes of the game session, they're going to be thrown right into that. So definitely, and try to maintain that kind of a pace of um, action, exploration, discovery, movement. So travel. Um, learning about rumors and such about what is going on in the general region, and just have a constant pace, a good pace to doing the three pillars of role playing, right? So they're going to have a little bit of combat, a little bit of social interaction, a little bit of exploration, which I include in exploration, the gathering of knowledge and whatnot, travel for sure, and that is something that I think is really important to start off a campaign with a very good pace. You don't want to start off a campaign with very, very slow pace. You want a little bit of action thrown in there just to get them immersed right away. So let's see what else we have. You have to know what the campaign is going to bring about: pure exploration, kill the Dark Lord, paying off a debt, working for an agency, etc., to know how to start. I don't know if you have to know. I've had campaigns develop very organically to the point where we didn't even form a real sense of what the campaign was going to be until about the 16th weekend, and myself included as the dungeon master of that. My players and I really didn't know where the campaign was, what it was going to drive it forward, and that turned out to be a 2 year and 3 month long campaign. The players went from first to 12th level, some 9 through 12, but basically everyone was either 9 through 12, depending on their character class. We played for 108 weeks in that campaign, or somewhere thereabouts, and and it was a campaign that ended up having a loose connection throughout all of the adventures, or virtually all of the adventures that they had been on, and and there was really some. It followed like a well-written mystery where you kind of know who the villain is in the beginning. Like, you always introduce, in a good mystery, you always introduce the villain in the first chapter, but they weren't quite aware until the very end how much they were manipulated by this villain. And they ended up doing this villain's bidding while still achieving the goal that they were looking to achieve, and not quite realizing that until the last couple of sessions. I go, hey, wait a second, we're really aiding this guy out here, and yet we're still meeting the objective that we've been fighting to do for these last 2 years of adventuring. So yeah, so um, campaigns can develop organically, and so I don't know if you necessarily have to have a clear vision of the campaign itself before you could do a start. You could have a very generic start and then let it just evolve over time. It's just my take on that. Getting right into a Strange New World campaign. Yeah, yeah, you can get them. I mean, I've had campaigns where they start off in a village, and they all from that village, and they're all fairly young. None of them much older than their teens or early 20s, and venturing out from that small village for the first time, and really starting to learn about the world as they go about. And I like doing that for several purposes. I think that a first level character should have very little backstory, other than this is where I'm from, this is what my parents did as a profession, and that explains my secondary skills, if you have any, and this is my motivation for going out into the greater world, and adventuring, knowing that adventuring is an extremely dangerous um, endeavor to go upon. And when you have them start out there, and you're kind of building the world out as they're expanding their exploration, they're traveling, about, and overall just letting the players kind of drive where the stories go. And then once you start seeding various things and they start really showing an interest in them, that's where like a mini campaign can start to grow. That's where a story thread or an adventure arc is created. Um, and there can be several adventure arcs and several ways to start them throughout one long, elongated campaign. Most of the time when you're running a multi-year campaign, they're not just embarking on one adventure from start to finish. This is not always Lord of the Rings, where destroying the ring becomes the entire purpose of it. You could have other side, adventures that are disconnected that might last several weeks to carry out, and yet somehow they get drawn back into those other strands that might have been laying about, just waiting for them to take an interest in. So once again, if anyone wants to jump in on this discussion, come on in through the backstage. So yeah, if you click on this link, you're going to come onto the live stream. So on the screen with me, just in case you're not aware of that. But yes, you're welcome to jump in. Hey, Shadow, how's it going? So Shadow, if you don't know, is one of my players, and he is in my current Castles and Crusades campaign that's been going on. We will be wrapping that one up in about 4 weeks, so that will be 24 weeks in this current Castles and Crusades campaign, and then we are shifting over to the other game, a different game that just slipped my mind, Dragonbane. Then we'll be shifting over to Dragonbane, see how that goes. But anyway, let's see. Dean Pal Martin, hey, doesn't work with every player. But these players decide their village had just been raided, and they wanted to hire mercenaries to free it. All right, that's cool too. Yeah, you can do kind of like the Magnificent Seven kind of scenario where, they're trying to bring others in and hire hirelings to help defend the village. That you're throwing them right into the action, and that's I think a pretty cool way of doing it is to let them just jump right in, and and that is certainly going to get them sucked right into the engagement that you're looking to happen on your table, particularly for an online game, which is, I'm either playing online or I'm playing at a convention. And obviously, I'm not at a convention every weekend, so I only go to 4 or 5 conventions a year. And so that is 4 or 5 weekends. So let's say about 10 days of my weekly of my 52 weeks of the year. So I might have 52 sessions online, or maybe 104 sessions online, compared to 10 sessions or so on at a convention. So actually, it wouldn't be 10 sessions. So it would be closer to every convention day, probably 4 or 5 sessions. So per day. So that I don't know. It's much more online than than in person. So hello, good to see you, solo RPG guy. Hey, it's been a while. I haven't spoken to you in quite some time. So good to see you. And again, yeah, you don't have to worry about campaign starters with a solo RPG. Although you might want to do that just for yourself, and think about, like, how am I going to have these characters start off in this situation, and or this campaign. So even in solo play, you might want to consider that, just to keep it fresh for yourself too. Um, all the ale is poisoned, and the characters all have to save or die a few minutes after drinking. One might get half of them with that. Yeah, it's kind of like a funnel, So you're doing a funnel, so like a DCC funnel, you throw them right into it, and it's a meat grinder kind of situation, and they don't have very much of a chance, and that's how you proceed with it. I think players would, certainly modern players might struggle a little bit with that idea of, especially if in preparation of that first session, they spent, a couple weeks creating their character and, thinking about their character and everything. And then to have them die in the first couple of minutes from one or two bad rolls, is kind of brutal. They have to have bought into that possibility ahead of time. I don't know how you would blow your surprise of you've all drank poison ale. Um, but yeah, you'd have to front load that, I would think. Otherwise, you'll get some people very upset with you. Um, so let's see. Let's see if I've missed any others. So nope. So I'll wait for some more comments. Again, if anyone wants to join in, it's up there. So yeah. So thinking about different ways to launch a new campaign. I've run campaigns where they start out as 0 level characters, and they have to actually go on a mini adventure, kind of like a test of a test of age kind of thing, and they have to determine what their character class is going to be from that introduction, and so that's something you can do as well. That's also a DCC thing. That's a that's kind of like a grindhouse kind of way of doing something as well, where you just kind of throwing them into it, and whoever survives, you look to see which character class they become based on their actions or their desires or whatever. And That's another way to launch in there. Now, with the taverns, if you are going to start them off in a tavern, as tropey as that might seem, there are ways of making it a little bit more interesting. And we've seen a couple here already, like their entire campaign takes place like I mentioned earlier on, the tavern could be like an extra dimensional mega dungeon, basically, and they're all of a sudden they're in this this strange universe of this particular tavern, and they go on a variety of adventures. Maybe the adventures are completely in their minds, and they're actually laying comatose on the in bed, never having left it, and yet they go through their entire adventuring career, and then at the very end, you spring upon them. No, actually, you were laying in bed the whole time, kind of thing, and it's kind of like a Brazil kind of story. If you're not familiar with that movie, Brazil, but that's kind of the premise. The person is just living in their subconscious. They've been lobotomized or about to be lobotomized, and they're just a prisoner, and living in a fantasy world just before it all comes to an end. So you could do things like that too. Again, I think some players might get really pissed at that idea, but it is certainly a unique way of both introducing a new campaign and running one. And it's like, oh, it was all just a dream kind of thing. I know when that happens, I watch like my daughters watching shows, and when they see that kind of a thing done, they'll be like, oh, I hate when they do that kind of thing. Or my wife does the same thing. Like there was that show Manifest where it was like everyone was dead, like Lost. Everyone was actually dead, and the whole thing was just in their dying moments what they imagined occurred to them. It's it certainly is a device, like a storytelling device, but one that I think is you run the risk of pissing people off. Let's see. I was thinking of a start where the characters are hanging out in a town, then things go to crap, and they have to escape, and they meet their henchmen on the way out. Then it goes from there. Yeah, you can have it where it's like you start them off in the town is being raided, and they go, they either choose to run or whatnot. They choose to fight. I played a game where we had characters in the real world and the characters in the Matrix. Yeah, that's cool. How much do you drop at one time, Richard? What is your strategy to try not to overload them? How much info do I drop? Again, it depends. It depends on. I'd like to build the world out. If you're talking about like dropping about the situation that they're in, I like to build it out, starting small and expanding. So as they are exploring further and further beyond, they're starting to learn about the environment around the world that they're in, the region, and then they. So I like it to develop over time, just like I like their characters to develop over time as well. So I don't do like a huge info drop kind of thing where I'm going to spend The first 35 minutes of a session, setting up everything for them, so that they kind of understand far too much about the world that they're in, if that makes sense. I want them to just have some general knowledge of the exact location that they're in, and maybe they will tell me what brought them there, um, and perhaps what they're looking to do next. And then they'll be faced with situations that will either follow along with that or take them in a new direction. So yeah, I don't want to dump too much info on them at one time. And like I said, I like things to develop over time organically, with just some seeds planted by me in the game world to give them options of what directions they'd like to go into. Mirador is one of my players as well, and Mirador actually played in that AD&D, so did Shadow and Sun as well, played in that AD&D campaign I mentioned earlier. And Mirador's group, they did start out in a tavern, but I put a twist on that where they didn't quite discover who each other's player characters were until they noticed that they were all doing the same routine that their secret message had told them to do when they got there. So that was kind of how they were introduced to the other player characters, was that they saw someone else across the room lighting a gray colored candle, and that's how they kind of knew, hey, I see this other person lighting this colored candle over here, and now I see a dwarf in the corner over there, and he's got the same gray candle. And let me go ask them what they know about this secret package that came. And that's how I brought them together, was that they all had a mystery note, and the mystery note told them one thing that most of them kept to themselves, and then the other thing was lighting that candle in view and then going to whomever asked them about the candle. So that worked out really well. I thought that was an interesting way of taking the tavern trope and changing it up a little bit, to just pull them right into the campaign from the get-go, and it was across the board buy-in with it as well. Yeah, Brazil is a great movie. I haven't seen that movie in decades. I'm sure it's on some streaming thing. I'd like to watch it again, but that was a pretty cool movie. I wonder if it holds up in time, though, because literally I haven't seen it in 30 years. So I'm wondering how well that movie holds up to today. Something it probably still does. It was a very psychological kind of thriller. I'm on the West Coast. When I was a kid, we would hear stories about people in the 1800s getting drugged and abducted at portside bars and waking up on a ship somewhere in the Pacific Ocean. Yeah, and there are certainly, if you're in a coastal region and even a fantasy world, you could get pressed into service, like Chubby Funster mentioned earlier on as well. And yes, that is where the term "shanghaied" comes from, right? So getting snatched off of a Los Angeles, port, dock, and next thing you know, you're on a merchant ship sailing to China. How about having a game where the characters don't know who they are and what they can do, and when they have to try things to learn what they're capable of? Well, yeah, that's starting your characters off at 0 level. DCC does that. DCC has you create 4 0-level characters. You don't know it's designed where 3 of your 4 characters are most likely going to die, and your fourth one will become the one that you then look at that character's stats and see how you played that character and see which class you want that character to become. So it's called the funnel. It's done in some other game systems as well, but I think any game system where they have zero level characters, which D&D has as well, you might have to go to a Dragon magazine to get the actual mechanics and implementation of that. But yeah, zero level characters have been around for quite some time, several decades at least. So yeah, that's out there. Um, well, I think on the East Coast, the only thing that we probably have that's related to Shanghai would be when England was famously using press gangs in the early American colonial time frame. So I don't know what they called it at the time. Um, yeah, I don't recall what that was called. Um, I know Americans called British sailors limeys for a reason around the same time frame. But again, I'm just not recalling what that was. Let's see. So, press gangs in early colonial America. I guess they were, they were called conscripts, I guess, right? Um, I think it was just called pressed. Um, oh, okay. No, have a character made and given to the DM, then given to another person, and have them have amnesia and have to learn to be themselves. Uh, so I don't quite understand that, Meridor. Like giving them like a pre-gen and then letting them figure out what the character is. That's one way to do it, I guess, is to give them pre-gens and tell them role play this and turn the character into what you want. Yeah, I'm not quite getting what you mean by that. Like handing it to another person. So one player makes a character, have a character made and given to the DM, then given to another person, and have them have amnesia and have to learn about themselves. I don't know. Why wouldn't the DM just hand the player a pre-generated character and say roll with that? See what the character becomes. Maybe somebody has an answer for you here. I believe Runehammer's hard suit starts with characters semi-amnesiac and have to learn and remember their abilities. Yeah, there's games like that. There's games where you are what you are what skills you put to use, and that becomes your character class. Virtually every one of those systems that have zero level characters do something similar to that. Yes, you could join the voice. There's a link, and you can join in. Yeah, maybe you can explain it better in person than writing it. My group were all professionals in real life, so I started a campaign where everyone took 2 weeks vacation in game to try this adventuring thing. It's pretty good too, yeah. You've gone on a relaxing excursion and you find out that you're in a dungeon crawl by accident. So, yeah, Mirador, if you didn't see it, you're welcome to hit that link and you'll be right in. So let's see, who else has tried some other things? Monsters rating works for the escape start. I was thinking a long-standing dispute with rulers that came to a head, and they have an upper hand with which the better solution might be to flee. Yeah, yeah, you can have them, kind of start off already thrown right into the fray, kind of thing, and that's very similar to what I'm going to start my next Dragon Slayer campaign. I mean, my players are pretty experienced players. Even in that group, that's going to be my Saturday night group, and they're going to realize you're starting off on a caravan. You've been hired to be the caravan guards, and you're going from this town to uh, a third town. So you're going to have one stopover along the way, and you're going through this pretty wild area to get attacked at some point, and so they kind of know that, or they will know that, hey, this is not going to go uneventful trip kind of thing. I was in a campaign looking for a group where we started on a slave ship as a funnel with 3 characters and mutinied. Yeah, yeah, that's certainly a way to start. The link is not working for me. Why? Um, let me try. Let me try a new one. That's a good funnel idea. Yeah, it's a very common one. It really is. It's you know you're you're starting off on a ship or in a dungeon. Oops, something went wrong. Try reloading the page. All right, I'm gonna reload. I don't know. Let me try reloading my page. Maybe that's the problem. I hope that doesn't screw this up. You're about to may not be changed. No, I don't want to risk reloading the page and taking myself out of the stream. Um, are you trying to? Can anybody else try to hit that link? And you don't have to join, but I just want to see if you hit the backstage, and then you can back out again. I don't know if it's a problem on my end or um, on Mirador's end. In a game at the moment, we have a bunch of players in an auction, and I am totally not selling 10 slaves. Stuff like this is great. Players rent things to the world with referee oversight, of course. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so Yeah, so I see someone else. If you want to actually join, I'll let you join in, Throxus. So just give me a thumbs up. I can see you, so give me a thumbs up. No, you don't want to come in. All right, but yeah, it is working. So thank you for that. Um, so Mirador, it is working on my end, and there it is again. Just keep on trying, I guess. Yeah, yeah, and thank you for that, Thrux. All right, let's see if we got Mirador now. Yes, we do.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. Let me
Okay. Okay.
let me just do this for a second.
hmm
Okay.
Okay. So, you remember, you had Albert play with us for a little while, for a couple weeks.
Okay.
One of your games, Albert
Yeah.
played. Well, he GM'd a game where we each made a character,
Hmm.
and then we gave it to him. But then all the characters had amnesia, so
Hmm.
we had to figure out by trying different things out what our character was capable of. We were all a certain class, but we all, in whatever world it was he had, but none of us knew what skills we had. So we had to just try things out. So some of us tried, fighting with a sword, picking up a sword and fighting it, and see if they were any good at it. We had our skills were still there, but we didn't remember who we were. So we had to try to figure out who we were. And then eventually, once we got to a certain point, he's all, okay, well, you've unlocked your memories, and he would hand the character sheets out, and we would have them. So half the game was just figuring out what you really were, and that was part of the
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, but why did you have to create the character to hand to him?
No, each person in the group created a character and then gave it to him, and then somebody else got assigned. He would assign somebody else one of the other person's characters, and we
Yeah.
had to
Why did
figure
he
out.
even bother doing that? Why wouldn't he just give them, give the players a pre-generated character without the players knowing anything about the character other than here's a character that you have, and then try to discover it, you
But
know.
well, part of
So
the fun was he would say, "Okay, well, you see that you are a 6 foot tall male, and you're in a loincloth, and you're in a room, and you had to figure out how to get out, and then figure out what you could do after you got out, and then somebody else was,
yeah, but didn't the player ultimately know what their character was anyway?
no, not at first. Everybody had it was, I can't remember what the setting was, but it was basically in such a setting that that we all had amnesia, so none of
No,
us
but
knew.
I'm saying is like if you created a half orc fight, all right, you handed it into him.
hmm
He hands that character over to somebody
Yet he
else.
doesn't hand it over to them until after a certain point. He describes everything that each person sees, and you have to try to figure out who you are. And then once you get to a certain point, he would say, "Okay, everybody has has gotten to a certain point where they unlock their ability to remember," and then he
And
we would play up to that.
does player B hand back the character to player A that created that character?
we it would all be theater of the mind until he got to the point where he thought that you had advanced enough, and then he would send you the character sheet, and you could have it on your computer, but you were basically playing blind until you reached a certain point.
Yeah, I still don't understand why he had you create characters at all. Then I would have just handed out everybody a pre-gen, and then let them. That way, they don't know at all what the character is until they discover it. You see what I'm getting? Like I don't understand why you turned in a character to have him hand it to somebody else,
Right.
to let somebody else play that character,
So I mean
and do they get to keep that
if
character,
I mean
or do
think
they
about it
return
like.
it back to the original player that created that
No,
character?
no. Think about it. There's games, like there's a game. I'm trying to remember what the name of it is. There's a game where, like a video game where everybody's on a spaceship and each person has a role, and nobody know. And one of the people is like an assassin trying to kill everybody else, and everybody else is trying to figure out who that person is, who the assassin is, right? Well, in this case, nobody knows what their character is, so you create a character knowing you're never going to play it, that somebody else is going to play it, and that other person has to figure out.
That's why I'm saying, like, I wouldn't even bother that. That's adding an extra step to using pre-gens, and just handing out a pre-gen
But I mean
and
that
letting.
that was part of the fun, is trying to figure out to figure out, oh, am I a spellcaster? Am I a thief? Am I a fighter? So people would just try things to see what they're good at and be like, nope, apparently I can't pick locks, so I guess I'm not a
Yeah,
thief.
right.
And
No, I get it. I get that. You can do the same thing with a pre-gen. Well, where the player had, like, none of the players actually have any idea who any of the other characters might be because they didn't create them. Otherwise somebody could.
well, yeah, I mean, I guess you could do the same thing. You could create a series of pre-gens, and then once they got to a certain point where you feel okay, you've realized that you must be a thief because you're able to pick locks or pickpockets or whatever, and then you could hand them their sheet. you know yeah, I guess you could take that step out and just you could do it
Yeah,
yourself. The
I would
GM
just.
could do that, but
Yeah.
still, that's the idea of the campaign, is start somewhere where you don't know what, and not just like video games like Skyrim and stuff. They have you start in prison, but at least you know what you are. But this case takes it one step further, is you don't really, you have amnesia, and you wake up somewhere and you
Right.
don't know what you can do, so you
Yeah.
have to try to figure it out, and that's
Yeah,
half
no,
the
I get
fun, is trying
that.
to figure it
Like,
out.
I understand that aspect of it. I just
Yeah.
didn't. I just didn't get the idea of you handing it to the DM. The DM then hands it to somebody else,
Well, they don't hand
and
it to
then.
him until a certain point. But yeah, I guess the GM could do the pre-gens,
Yeah.
but pre-gens for them, or like I said, it was just something fun to
Yeah.
give us a chance to create a character, and then see if, and I guess what's part of the fun is that if you create the character and somebody else gets it, then you get to see, oh, maybe they play it with a totally different vision than you had for that character. Oh,
Yeah.
they took that character and played it totally different than I was going to play it. That's cool. you know
Yeah. Yeah. That was the only thing I wasn't quite getting, was that transferring of characters. But anyway, um, well, thank you for that. Yeah, that's something. I mean, you could do that. I think that's still primarily like when you're doing a funnel. You don't know which one of your four characters is going to
right.
survive, and it might be the one with the worst stats ends up surviving,
It
and
usually is. Well,
and,
what's
and
funny
now
every
yeah,
time I've played a funnel, it seems like you try to have a certain
yeah,
character that you want, and you try to
yeah,
protect him, and you make the other ones be bold, and then sometimes the dice just go in such a way that, oh, the one that
yeah,
was bold that you meant to sacrifice himself
yeah,
rolled so well he survived, and the one you
yeah.
wanted to keep ended up dying.
Hey, hey, negative space. Hey, Johnny Doom, Coco. Thanks for your input. Just showing some shout outs. Uh, Thruxus, thanks for pointing out that that was working. And so, Mike, I thought Planscape Tournament did. I thought Planscape Tournament did the amnesia trope well.
Yeah,
The
it's a lot
person
like
Azure
that.
Bronze did that too. Yeah,
It's a lot
yeah,
like it's a lot like that, where he wakes up and he doesn't know what he is, and he can
yeah,
start and he basically starts as a level one nothing, and
yeah,
whatever you do, he starts evolving into that kind of character class. Yeah,
yeah.
that's similar. Yeah, kind of like that.
So let me ask everybody that's watching. Um, if you had to put a percentage on it, and you can type it in the chat. What percentage of your characters started off in a tavern? Now, I'm not asking DMs what percentage you put your characters and your players in that situation, but players, what percentage did you start off in a tavern? So, I would say, because I don't play that often, certainly not any longer. I'm like the forever GM. Um, I I would have to say greater than 50% of the time, my new characters have started off in a tavern. Um, yeah, so I would say greater than 50%. Maybe like Throxus says, maybe even as high as 75%. Um, I'm trying to think. My very first DM, which would have been in like 1978, 79, 78, I think. My very first DM had us start off in the dungeon itself, like walking to the entrance of a dungeon. So yeah, there was no, and that was my first introduction to role playing, first introduction to Dungeons and Dragons, and we were literally you're a group of adventurers walking into this, these caves that you've heard a rumor of, vast treasures and dangers hidden within. Go, kind of thing. What do you do, kind of thing, and that was my introduction. Um, Other game systems obviously are not as tied to that trope. Um,
And I
I
guess
mean,
you could have like different kinds of like shipwreck tropes where
yeah,
you get shipwrecked on an island, or if
yeah,
it's a space campaign, your ship crashes and
yeah,
now you're on an alien planet and now you have to figure out how to survive. Different types of shipwreck uh,
yeah, yeah. I've done
tropes.
that with like when I ran the last time I ran Star Frontiers. Yeah, the players just had a ticket to go on to go on a ship, and some were going on board because they were hired to work on board. Another was going on board as a passenger, thinking they were going to go elsewhere, and then it just launched into an adventure. And then the passenger decided, hey, I'm going to stay, and they basically started off with different purposes, but ended up serving on the ship, um, by choice. So that's another way. Um, Anytime I've run like superhero games, they've started in the street. They've started in the street. Looking down on an alley kind of thing. That kind of when you see a crime taking place, you jump right into it. Gangbusters, they started in the roll call room, and getting their as police officers getting their marching orders for the day, to go out there. So yeah, different game systems and different genres are going to have a totally different take on that. And so that's another interesting thing, is that why is that trope? Because you could certainly have gangbusters start off at the bar, well, kind of, like I'm saying, or a speakeasy if you wanted to play a criminal campaign. But yeah, I wonder if that is a trope that is just found with fantasy RPGs.
And
Um,
and you could do something too like kind of like a gold rush kind of thing where
mhm,
there's a town that's been plagued by monsters and there's a big
yeah,
reward and people here from all over the world, and so they come there seeking this reward and they get put together into groups to go try to take this out. You don't know them to begin with, but then you come together to do it.
yeah, yeah, Johnny Doom. Yeah, yeah. There's you can have them thrown right into the situation. I mean, that's how that's how Twilight 2000 begins. I mean, you're fighting in the streets of Krakow, trying fighting to get the hell out of there. As the whole campaign turns to shit, and now you're trying to escape, basically escape Poland as it's collapsing, and that's another one. Like I said, it doesn't start you off in the tavern. So I'm wondering if that is just a fantasy trope. And I'm getting some answers to that now. So let's see. The campaign I really liked, even though I don't agree with a lot of the creator's views, was one where the characters found a crashed spaceship accidentally activated it, and it transports them to another. Yeah, yeah, that's definitely a way, and yeah, it works. It works. You're on a. It's basically like the SS Minnow kind of thing, right? You're on a ship on a 3-hour tour, and all of a sudden you're on a deserted island for the next couple of years, kind of thing. So, um, Dimensions that is a futuristic cross with sci-fi setting, and the characters had to pick new deities, patrons to get their abilities from, and they were told there'd be a big change at the beginning. Okay, of the game up front. Yeah, yeah, they were told about those up front.
Another thing that might be interesting. I don't know if you ever played the old Ultima computer game series, but the idea was is that somebody in the modern times starts reading a book and then he gets transported into a fantasy setting. So
Yeah.
he's got like knowledge of future technologies, but he
Hmm.
doesn't. But it's not implemented because he's in the
Yeah.
past. So that would be something that would be interesting.
Yeah. That is Three Hearts and Three Lions, which I just finished listening to, was basically that. The guy was a World War I combatant, and all of a sudden, like he got hit in the head, like shot in the head, like a graze, and then in um, he woke up in the Knights of Camelot realm, kind of, still same area of France, but the Knights of Camelot, and ended up having to became the prototype for the paladin for Dungeons and Dragons. So really really interesting story. It was a cool story, but he was kind of a character caught between both worlds, the real world and that fantasy world, and throughout time he would keep on jumping back and forth between the two. Excuse
And
me.
that the thing I was mentioning earlier, another one, this is another game that Albert ran, where we had two characters. We had a real world character, and then we had a character in the Matrix, and the real world character would manipulate that character in the Matrix. And some
Mhm.
sessions were in the Matrix, and some were in the real world, dealing with things that were happening in the real world. So that was pretty interesting too. That was pretty
Yeah,
fun.
I'm trying to remember which character did he play. Did he play?
He played a magic user, and his wife played a thief. They played for a few sessions. In When we were at the carnival in CNC
Oh, Castles and Crusades. All right.
Castles and Crusades. Yeah, he played a mage, and his
Okay.
wife played a thief, and they played for a few sessions.
And then
And then
I remember, and
their
they had to
schedule
drop
changed or
out.
something, and they
Yeah,
couldn't
I remember
come in.
now.
Yeah,
They were in some. They were not in. Where the heck were they? New
they
Zealand?
live in Missouri.
Oh, Missouri.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought they were. Oh, I'm thinking of another group of people, but they
Well, I
weren't New
mean,
Zealand.
yeah,
Yeah,
they live in Missouri.
yeah.
He he did have to. He got she came from the Philippines, but by the time
Okay.
he was there,
Yes, I
she was
remember
already
now.
here. She was already
Yeah,
here. Yeah.
yeah. All right. Um, yeah, getting transported to a fantasy world through a book, like what happens in Mist. I love that game just to walk around and look at stuff. Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, and that's another one. I mean, Michael Crichton's Nightfall does the same thing, where that they're transported through a time machine, and you end up having two Marines. One went through by choice, and the other went through by accident, and at different time, at different time frames in their own world. And one became a really bad guy, and the other one became someone trying to get everything set back before the bad guy alters history too much. So it was like it was kind of like the butterfly effect, kind of thing going on at the same time that you have this high tech fantasy kind of thing taking place.
Yeah.
Guardians of the Flame is a series about a group of college students who played a fantasy role playing game and are magically transported to the world of the game by their game master. Yeah, so it's kind of
Kind of like the
Dungeons
cartoon,
and Dragons
Dragons cartoon.
1983 cartoon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like basically that's where the 83 cartoon got its idea from.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Currently, Albert is running a Stargate game. So, in that one, we all basically based on our professions in the real our characters' professions in the real life, we were brought to um, to NORAD to
yeah,
decide whether we were going to be willing to join the program, and then we all got put together in the program based on our skill sets
yeah.
too.
What time does he run his games?
It's Thursday nights at 8.
Eastern time or his time?
Yeah, Eastern time.
Oh,
Yeah, so yep. So
with that system, is the Stargate game run and played?
it's I found this book it's basically a skin over 5e. It's very similar to 5e, but the skills are appropriate for Stargate, and
Yeah.
not all the same you would have in a fantasy world,
All
but
right.
it's basically a 5e skin.
Oh, geez, I left your comment up there forever. Uh, let me try to find it so I can take it off of there. Oh, I just click on this one.
And what's interesting is that
Nope.
we started it before the movies or the series. So basically, we're doing all the discoveries. So none of the stuff that happened in the show has happened yet. So
Mm,
it might never happen. I mean, we found that the Stargate was already discovered, but we were actually the ones that came and deciphered. Like if you've seen the movie, Daniel Jackson
mm,
deciphers the inscriptions and figures out how to dial the gate. Well, our
mm.
characters did that instead. So we're
Yeah,
we're the ones that so
yeah.
everything that happened in the series hasn't happened yet. So we get to decide the whole path of the series. It starts in 1997, and goes forward. So
Okay. I'm just checking on my. Oh, I don't have any more free memberships to give away. I must have done that already for the rest of the month. All right. So off topic. I'm not familiar with the new setting of Twilight 2000. Um, so the Free League one, I don't have it. I've thought about it, but I just love the first one, and so I'll probably, if I ever do run Twilight 2000, I'm running the first one. Um, I don't see any reason to go to a different one anyway. Um, yeah, I just like that first system so much. So I don't know the answer to that, Mike. Um, Post-apocalyptic sounds like fun. The thing was that wasn't really post-apocalyptic; it was during apocalyptic. So it's like, um, it was not. It was during the war itself. So in some areas, yes, the atomic bombs were coming down, and in other areas, they were just trying to fight their way back home because the whole thing was coming to closure and everything. There was like they could kind of see that, hey, no side is going to win this thing. Let's at least get back home. That was kind of the premise of um, Twilight 2000 in 1980. four, three, four, somewhere around there when that game came out.
One of the most fun games I ever played in was when I was in the first year I was in college. Um, there was a it was a BattleTech game, and we would meet every week, for a set a real session where
Mhm.
there would be a battle that we would go out and fight. But during the rest of the week, our characters were on either the drop ship or the jump ship, and if we met up with the GM in real life, we could tell the GM what our characters were doing in off time, and sometimes we were, doing things that were counterproductive to other characters and stuff behind their backs and all kinds of intrigue. That was really fun.
Yeah, that's cool. Um, yeah, and again, like there's there's all kinds of stuff that you can do in between sessions that that will kind of drive the drive the game session, the upcoming game session into certain directions and whatnot. And and so I do like the idea of um, doing a session zero, getting some ideas, from the players and everything like that, and then running a the first session as a play session, like a couple weeks down the road. That way we can kind of, both the game master and the players can kind of get a sense of, what do we want this to look like right from the start. And I think that that's something that you can basically, really start off and say, to the players, like, do your characters know each other? How do they know each other? How much do you want that to be a part of our first session kind of discussion? And then that way um, you'll be better informed as to how to start off the new campaign. I would still avoid starting off in the tavern trope kind of thing, but there are other ways. There are other things that you can certainly try and give it a shot. I don't think it's a good idea to have all of the player characters already knowing each other, unless you're having them start like you're doing that, session zero. I mean, level zero characters starting in the small same town. You know, that's more likely that they will know each other because they're all from that same particular region. They haven't even started adventuring yet. They don't even have their first class yet. So let's see.
Another thing that we did with that BattleTech campaign, and actually the other Dragonbane game that I'm playing in,
Mm,
we had multiple characters. Like in the BattleTech game, we each had a mech warrior. So when we
mhm,
had the battle session, we'd have somebody would have a mech pilot, and then we'd have another character that was either a tech or an aerospace fighter pilot or a dropship pilot
right.
or a medic. So some of the sessions were with those people, and some of them, and then the weekly session most of the time was a drawn out battle where he'd have a battle map set out when we, this is your objective, and we would spend hours doing the fight, and then we'd switch to our other characters, our off, our non-battle mech characters. And in the Dragonbane campaign last week, I had two characters. One of them's an artisan, and the other one is an animist. And he said, "Well, since we got more players coming, I only want you to bring one character." So I left my artisan behind to
Hmm.
craft new gear for the rest of the party.
Right.
So that might be neat to have, to have multiple characters of different classes to take out on different adventures.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's another way to like introduce new characters as well, is to have them be basically like the henchmen, of the main characters, and now they only know of each other through their connection with the other party. kind of thing. And so that's how you can kind of launch them. We never fully developed that in our AD&D campaign. Um, Although I think you each had a henchman at that point.
Yeah, well,
Um,
we had someone we were going to train, and
Correct. Yeah, and
you
be
were going to have
basically
a side
ultimately
adventure, and that never happened. I don't
your
think.
replacement. Yeah, like in case your character died, they would have replaced you at that point. But we just got too invested in the campaign that we were in, and we never got around to doing that. Um, but yeah, that's always, you know, I still have all those character sheets, so I can still go back to that, and we can always revisit that campaign if we get everybody together to do it. All righty. So so yeah, I'm gonna wrap this one up a little bit early today. I think we've kind of run through and talked enough about just the different ways of starting campaigns, and just to refresh the conversation. So we have, starting off in the tavern, starting off as a caravan, guard, starting off on a ship that gets shipwrecked and you're cast aside, being being pressed by a pressed gang into service on a ship, or uh, waking up in a dungeon, to starting off in a dungeon as an adventure party, to starting off everyone has amnesia and don't know what your characters are capable of doing yet. Um, Starting off on the battlefield, uh, already in the mix of it, and starting off wounded. Um, so that is a number of different ways that you can kick off a campaign. Starting with a funnel is just a mechanical theme of doing something where most of the characters are intended to be killed off, and you're going to stick with the one that actually survives. Let's see what Brooke had to say here. I like having them start with knowing each other. It seems to help give some ownership in the story right away by saying, okay, what's your party's story? Um, yeah, I mean, that is certainly something that you can have them do if they're, even if they're first level, because they could have started off as zero level, um, and done a little bit of adventuring or a little bit of training, um, you know, from the same location, even if they are different character classes and such. They could be all from the same town, and so know each other. Yeah, I've done that before, and it does lead to more cohesion right from the get go. Um, and then you have it like where their town is being raided, and now you're throwing them right into the common purpose, and defending their own home, and that kind of a thing as well. You're going to even further
Yeah.
advance the party story
I
by
think there
saying,
was a Dark Sun video game that started out where the characters started off in an arena, right? They were
yeah,
thrown to the wolves. Here, you either work together or die, and
yeah, yeah, yeah. So there's a variety of ways that you can introduce the player characters to one another, and then very quickly put them onto at least the first common goal amongst them, and then let it go out from there. Um, Again, I don't like front loading a campaign with too much of a storyline thread that they're meant to follow. Um, and again, like I mentioned, I don't know if you were on already at that point, Mirador, but I said, like, our AD&D campaign really didn't get its overall theme until about 16 weeks in. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you know, not until, and even in my own mind, not until, um, not until the dark druid was charmed and then allowed to escape or escaped or whatever, did that really start to come together, you know, in my mind of, all right, this is what the whole thing is going to circle around, you know, be about, you know, is that. And then I forget when I think when I introduced that fake lich, um, that your party faced, that's when I started getting the idea of, you know, what the big bad guy was really going to be, you
Right.
know. And then I started thinking, it was probably a couple of weeks later when I started thinking, all right, he is going to co-opt the group's purpose of defeating Waystree's plans to he's going to co-opt the party into, um, freeing him from his bonds so that he can then defeat Wastree and then become a demigod himself. You know what I'm saying? And kind of replace him, you know, as an evil entity.
Almost
Um,
kind of like the Baldur's Gate kind of thing is where the except you didn't have us be descendants of gods, but he was at least,
yeah.
or he was trying to be a god, and so
Well, yeah, an archlich that, you know, was Zeligar, you know, the you know, famous wizard of Greyhawk, um, you know, note, and that was the explanation of, you know, how he disappeared. He didn't really disappear. He became a lich and then was entrapped by, um, I forget which demon it was, a demon lord it
it was
was.
a frog thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sagoth or something like that. And then that was the connection to Wastree, which is also kind of connected to frogs and things like that as well. And that became the, you know, but like I said, you know, earlier on, that campaign didn't have its true thread, underlying thread of a storyline until like 16 weeks in.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even fleshed out completely until probably about 90 weeks in. You know, crazy as it is, you know, it took about 90 weeks before I started to really get the idea of, all right, this is what the ultimate, you know, twist is going to be. um, I forget how when that came about. I think that idea came when you guys first started approaching the lair of that plague dragon, and that's when I decided that, yeah, that's what this whole thing is going to be about. You're going to end up freeing Zeligar from his bonds, and then, like, probably another eight or 10 sessions later, that's when the climax was. That's when the last battle was. So anyway, yeah, Skyrim was a wagon. Which one was Skyrim? Wake up on the wagon. I forget how Morrowind started. Um, didn't Morrowind have you wake up in a? A lot of them have you wake up in a cell. That's Elder Scrolls likes having you wake up in a cell. Um, yeah, Skyrim has you on the wagon heading to. Oblivion was in jail. Yeah, Oblivion was in jail. Morrowind, you arrive from a boat. Yes. Yeah. So you arrive from a boat. So yeah, they have all of those tropes in there, right? So you have the wagon heading to the executioner's block. You have Daggerfall. You are sent on a missive by the king. Yeah, and I forget, were you, was it a dream of the, I forget exactly what it was in Daggerfall too. It's been so many years since I played that. I should check that out. I have that on my Steam. I have Daggerfall on Steam and see if it actually runs. But anyway, all right. We are, yeah, we're about the hour and a half mark. I think we've pretty much touched on this topic a lot, enough. Rest well with the night. For tomorrow, you sail to the kingdom of Daggerfall. Is the intro voice acting? Yes. Thank you very much for remembering that. I love that game when that first came out. I mean, that game was awesome, and it was one where you could print out the text of every book that was in that game, because you could actually go into the files, the document files of the CD-ROM, and you could print out. And I printed out every single book that was in that game. I had a binder that was probably about 4 inches thick of every page, every book that was in the game, and it was just such a cool thing to have. And I only recently got rid of the CD-ROMs because you couldn't run them anymore anyway. There was, no one has computers that can run those things any longer, and they're on Steam anyway. But anyway, everyone, well, thanks a lot for joining in. I'm going to wrap this one up early. Mirador, thanks for popping in, and I will see
Yep.
you Tuesday night.
Yep.
Tuesday, I might not be. I don't think I'm going to be working Tuesday because I'm going to have a snowstorm.
Okay.
We'll see how Lee fares, because I think the weather is coming up from the south and then across from the Great Lakes. That's where the cold is coming to make it a snowstorm for us. So hopefully her internet can handle it. Hopefully mine does too. And we'll see.
Yeah.
But yeah, I should be home on Tuesday, so I will be available through most of Tuesday. I think my wife is going to be off from work too. They close the schools down here.
Okay.
All right. So everyone, thanks for joining. Great conversation, and we'll see what next week topic is. We'll see what comes up, and as always, I look forward to seeing you on a gaming screen or at a convention sometime soon. I am starting to plan to do a Dragon Slayer campaign to begin on. It'll be on Saturday evenings. So if any of you are available Saturday evenings, Mirador yourself included, Shadow and Sun, if you're still on, you're welcome as well. And I already have 3 players that were in my Shadow Dark play test that hopefully will be available. That will be Dragon Slayer, and that is, I'm planning on that being a very long campaign. Might throw in Barrow Maze into that, or at least portions of Barrow Maze into that. And so I'm planning on that being a very long campaign, and a very slow-paced leveling campaign as well. So I expect that to be a month's long, if not even a year or more long campaign. Looking forward to it. So anyway,
Right.
you all have a great one, and take care.